Welcome. In this short video, I want to address the idea that awakening is non-doing. In the first video, we talked about the awakened heart and coming home to the truth of who you are, which is in the heart. And we also talked about the mythological journey, the journey that we're all on, that takes us back to our home, the truth of our being, which is found in the heart. So when we think about this, we may read books, we may listen to lectures, we may hear about the states of enlightenment that some people have experienced. We may have imaginings of what it might be like. And a question naturally arises in the mind. How do I do that? And this is the only way that the mind can comprehend something. It's by doing. And when you think about it, at the centre of our lives is always the sense of I. I'm doing this, I'm like this, I feel great, I feel sad. It's always I at the centre. And the I, the egoic sense of I in the mind, can only understand things by doing. Now, when it comes to awakening, or enlightenment, or nirvana, finding peace, that idea, that inclination to do it ourselves simply doesn't work. We cannot awaken because the awakened state that we're talking about is actually beyond the mind. So the mind cannot go beyond the mind. The limited sense of self, which has been called the ego, cannot go beyond itself. It can only operate within its own domain. So when we come to this question of awakening, the awakened heart, that question, how do I do it, simply does not operate. So that leaves us with a dilemma. Do we just give up and say, well, it's just a pipe dream, it's a fantasy, it can't be done? Or is there some other way that we can awaken without getting caught up in the mind and its doing? And the reason why the mind and its doing cannot take us there is simply because the mind can only operate within the known. It can only operate according to concepts or projections that it knows about or can imagine. And yet the truth of who I am, the truth of being, call it the soul, I'm calling it the awakened heart, is beyond all that. It actually exists in a realm which is unknown to the mind. It is a realm that is beyond concepts, and it is a realm that is beyond thinking. So therefore we can see how the mind cannot take us there, because the mind can only operate with concepts and by thinking. So what happens? How does awakening happen? And awakening beckons us. Enlightenment finds us. Peace finds us. As I said in the first video, the fullness and the wholeness of who I am is already established. It is totally there. God's work is complete, and we are created in fullness and totality and perfection. However, as we all know, we've all been conditioned by life. We've all had a personality which is developed through life, and we have this human mind which, as I've been saying, operates by doing and thinking. So the awakening is a non-doing. The awakening is something that happens to us. But there are conditions that are fulfilled which then allow awakening to happen. And the main condition is seeing through the illusion of the mind and the illusion of the egoic self, which stands at the centre and believes that it can do it. It believes that it can achieve something and is focused almost entirely on its own needs. Its need to feel okay, its need to find happiness, its need to be proved right, its need to have some security through thinking. When we see through that and recognize that is not who I am, that is just a thought process going on in the mind, then that starts to drop away, and in its place a natural realization starts to happen that I am already awakened. The truth of who I am is already here. There's nothing to add to it, there's nothing to be done about it, there's nothing to achieve. So we allow, we surrender. One of the most powerful questions we can ask ourselves in this process is the question, who am I? And again, this limited egoic sense of self, this I, this personality that operates in the world. If we ask ourselves the question, who am I? And then listen deeply inside for the answer. And what we find with deep contemplation, there's no answer. The I that I think I am is just a thought, or a series of thoughts, an image that has been built up through life, through my experiences, through my conditioning. And when we see through that, we see that all its projections, its manipulations, its desires, its needs are also illusory. When they drop away, then the radiant truth of who I am remains. The fullness, the wholeness of the awakened heart is there, and it has been beckoning us all the way along. What we need to do is to see through the illusion of who we thought we were based upon the mind, and come home to that truth in the heart of who we truly are. As we said in the last video, this is the whole mythological journey that has been written about and lived through for thousands of years. So thank you for listening to this, and blessings on your journey.